It's something where people put themselves in that position. They think on a survival film or an isolation film, you think, what would I do?
Blake Lively's public persona was built over nearly 2 decades with remarkable consistency. From her early days on Gossip Girl, she became known as Serena Vander Woodson, a character who blended glamour with accessibility. This role not only launched her career, but also set the tone for her public image, polished, poised, and carefully curated. Unlike many of her Hollywood peers, Lively rarely sought attention through controversy. Her interviews, red carpet appearances, and social media presence were all carefully considered, reinforcing a reputation for professionalism and control. Even in moments of personal milestone announcements, she maintained a selective transparency, offering glimpses of her life without oversharing or inviting speculation. This meticulous approach extended beyond her personal brand to her collaborations with media outlets and publicists. Every appearance, from fashion campaigns to magazine features, emphasized a balance between relatability and aspirational elegance. The result was a consistent narrative. Blake Lively as a competent, composed, and approachable Hollywood figure. It was this very consistency that later became a reference point when media narratives began to shift. By establishing herself as a controlled and deliberate public figure, Lively created expectations that would influence how audiences and journalists interpreted her reactions when legal scrutiny eventually emerged.
It's a bit of a tough adjustment in our house, but it's good. I mean, I have 2 other daughters, so my oldest is very into the baby, but my middle child, not so much.
Blake Lively has long maintained a careful approach to media engagement, balancing visibility with discretion. From the beginning of her career, she selected interviews and public appearances that aligned with the image she wanted to project: polished, relatable, and professional, while avoiding moments that might invite unnecessary controversy. Her social media strategy reflected a similar pattern. Lively often shared curated glimpses of her life, including family moments, fashion highlights, and professional milestones, without overexposing her personal life. These posts reinforced her aspirational image while maintaining a sense of mystery, allowing her audience to connect without feeling privy to every detail. Media outlets, in turn, responded to this consistency by framing her narratives around elegance and professionalism. Features often highlighted her career transitions, philanthropic work, or fashion influence, further strengthening the perception of a controlled public persona. This long-term strategy of selective visibility created a foundation for narrative authority. By carefully managing what she revealed and how she interacted with the media, Lively established a level of control over her public story. Control that would later be tested as legal developments brought increased scrutiny and shifting interpretations of her image. When Blake Lively's legal situation first emerged in the media, initial coverage focused on reporting the facts rather than speculating on her personal behavior or character. Entertainment outlets emphasized the procedural aspects of the case, highlighting dates, filings, and official statements, while largely maintaining a neutral tone. Early articles often referenced Lively's history of careful public image management, noting her discretion and professionalism. This context shaped how journalists and audiences initially interpreted the story, positioning her as a figure who approached both her career and personal matters with intentional control. At the same time, some coverage began to explore potential implications for her career and brand partnerships. Analysts and commentators considered how the legal attention might affect her public engagements, endorsements, and media perception, without venturing into sensational or emotionally charged language. This initial framing set a foundation for how subsequent narratives would develop. By documenting the situation factually and contextualizing it within her established public persona, early coverage provided a baseline against which later shifts in media tone and public perception could be measured.
This case is about something even larger than the case itself. It's really about a woman trying to protect herself and others in the workplace.
As Blake Lively's legal situation developed, subtle shifts in media language became increasingly noticeable. Headlines and articles began to move beyond strictly factual reporting, incorporating descriptors and phrasing that emphasized ambiguity, uncertainty, or speculation. While still neutral in tone, the framing of her actions and decisions shifted slightly from objective to interpretive. Journalists and entertainment outlets started highlighting her responses, or lack thereof, in ways that suggested context and nuance. Phrases focusing on careful discretion evolved into commentary on her measured approach or selective visibility, signaling a change in how her public persona was being evaluated under pressure. This shift also appeared in feature articles, interviews, and commentary pieces. Writers explored the contrast between her previously controlled public image and the emerging complexity of legal scrutiny, noting how even minor statements or appearances could take on amplified significance. By tracking these linguistic changes, it became clear that media narratives were gradually recalibrating. Even neutral, fact-based reporting began to include subtle cues about Lively's public image, marking the start of a broader narrative evolution that would shape audience perception and the story's ongoing trajectory. Blake Lively's measured public responses during her legal situation became a focal point for both media and public interpretation.
This isn't just Hollywood. This is so much more global, and it's not just, oh, guess what? This is what's happening to women suddenly. This has been happening since the beginning of time.
Her decision to maintain relative silence or offer only carefully crafted statements was widely noted, with analysts suggesting that every appearance, interview, or social media post carried additional weight. Fans and commentators alike examined her red carpet appearances, public outings, and media statements for clues about her perspective or emotional state. Even neutral gestures, such as a brief interview or a professional photo shoot, were interpreted within the broader context of her legal attention. Social media amplified this scrutiny. Online discussions often debated the meaning behind her choices, from the timing of posts to the tone of her statements, demonstrating how audiences actively engaged with her controlled visibility. These interpretations, while varied, reflected an underlying recognition of her historically deliberate media strategy. Ultimately, Lively's approach highlighted the challenges public figures face when maintaining personal discretion amid widespread attention. Her silence and selective communication became part of the evolving narrative, influencing both media framing and public perception in measurable ways. Entertainment journalism played a central role in shaping how Blake Lively's public image evolved during her legal situation. Outlets acted as both amplifiers and interpreters, reinforcing established perceptions while occasionally questioning the narrative surrounding her discretion and professionalism. Profiles and feature articles often emphasized her career achievements and media-savvy approach, framing her as a figure who carefully balanced visibility with privacy. At the same time, investigative or opinion-based pieces explored the nuances of her public responses, highlighting moments where media interpretation diverged from her intended messaging. Editorial choices, including headline phrasing, image selection, and contextual commentary, subtly influenced audience perception. By choosing which elements of her story to emphasize, journalists could reinforce the perception of control, or conversely, suggest areas where narrative authority was challenged. This interplay between Lively's managed visibility and journalistic framing demonstrated how media coverage itself becomes part of the narrative. Audiences were not only reacting to her actions, but also to the lens through which those actions were presented, underscoring the significant influence of entertainment journalism on her evolving public image.
So there's a lot of video out there, and the jury is going to have a chance to see potentially some of these interactions back and forth.
Social media played a significant role in shaping public perception of Blake Lively during her legal situation. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and fan forums became spaces where audiences actively analyzed her statements, appearances, and social media activity. Every post, image, or public outing was examined for clues about her perspective or intentions. Online reactions ranged from supportive commentary, highlighting her professionalism, to analytical discussions dissecting her silence and media strategy. Memes, threads, and opinion posts contributed to a rapidly evolving narrative, often amplifying minor details and encouraging deeper engagement with her public persona. These digital conversations sometimes reframed her image in ways traditional media had not. For example, her curated social media posts were interpreted as signals of control or careful messaging, while her absence from certain public events sparked speculation about her priorities and state of mind. Overall, social media acted as both a mirror and a magnifier, reflecting existing perceptions while creating new layers of interpretation. The discourse demonstrated how public engagement could influence the broader narrative, shaping audience understanding of Blake Lively beyond formal media coverage. As Blake Lively's legal situation continued, subtle signs of narrative fatigue began to emerge. Even with her long-standing control over public perception, the sustained attention created moments where media framing and public interpretation became more speculative. Coverage started to focus on gaps or ambiguities in her statements and appearances, highlighting instances where silence or discretion could be read in multiple ways. Headlines occasionally emphasized uncertainty, and repeated commentary on her measured responses suggested that even carefully managed visibility could not fully contain public interest. Social media also reflected this fatigue. Online discussions became increasingly analytical, with users questioning motives, interpreting subtle cues, or debating potential implications of her behavior. This proliferation of interpretation indicated a shift. The audience was no longer solely reacting to Lively's intended narrative, but constructing their own understanding from limited information.
Hey Blake, I hope the fitting was super successful. Thank you for sending those pictures. That was really cool.
These developments illustrate the challenges faced by public figures under prolonged scrutiny. Despite her historically consistent image management, Blake Lively's ability to control the narrative was tested, revealing both the limits of media strategy and the evolving dynamics of audience engagement. Blake Lively's carefully cultivated image has long supported both her career and brand partnerships. However, prolonged legal attention introduces new considerations for professional and commercial opportunities. Endorsements, collaborations, and public appearances may now be evaluated in the context of heightened scrutiny, with partners weighing potential perception alongside her established reputation. While her history of professionalism and media control remains a strong asset, shifting narratives can influence audience reception and brand alignment. Marketers and collaborators often consider not only talent and popularity, but also public sentiment and media framing, which makes consistent perception increasingly important. At the same time, Lively's strategic discretion offers a degree of resilience. By continuing to manage appearances and statements carefully, she can maintain credibility and minimize potential reputational risk. Her established persona, poised, professional, and deliberate, provides a foundation for navigating both media coverage and public expectations moving forward. Overall, the interplay between legal developments and professional considerations highlights the broader impact of media narratives on a celebrity's career, emphasizing how public perception can influence opportunities in subtle but significant ways. Looking ahead, Blake Lively's reputation will continue to evolve as both media coverage and public perception respond to her legal situation. One potential outcome is the reinforcement of her established image, a professional, composed, and deliberate figure who maintains control over her narrative despite external pressures. Consistent management of appearances, statements, and social media can help preserve this perception. Alternatively, ongoing scrutiny may introduce subtle shifts in audience interpretation. As digital platforms and traditional outlets increasingly analyze her actions, even minor gestures or posts could influence how her persona is understood. This underscores the challenges of maintaining narrative authority in a rapidly changing media landscape. Ultimately, the trajectory of Lively's reputation will depend on the interaction between her continued media strategy, legal developments, and public engagement. While her history of careful image management provides a strong foundation, the evolving dynamics of journalism, social media discourse, and audience perception will play a critical role in shaping how Blake Lively is remembered and understood in the years to come.